Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Gaming in the Keats. We are on my round 2 of Mountain Mayhem. First of all, I'd actually like to thank everyone who reached out and commented on not only my channel update video, but also just reaching out to me on the forum as well, and just sharing some kind words there. I really greatly appreciate it. So, that being said, I'm up against Highborn Elves for my round 2 in Mountain Mayhem. I have to absolutely stress how beautiful this army has been painted by Grand Admiral Paul. So, yeah, let's get into it. So here's my list. I'm not going to go over it in too much detail because my round 1 talks about it a bit more in depth. However, I will note some tricks here that I like to do. Is that the Harbinger on the Pale Horse goes into the Hellhounds, and so when they charge, they have that nice advance rate of 9, 18. So yeah, when they charge, their agility 7 on the charge, which is really fun. It makes for a nice little missile unit. The problem I'm starting to find, though, is that when you put the Harbinger in there, the dogs still tend to die, and it's taking all your Evo spells kind of out of range of other important combats. So, I don't know, you have to play that unit, I think, with a lot of finesse. And the dogs don't have that mobility as sirens do because they're not light troops. So, I might end up changing that setup for future games past this tournament. But we'll see. We'll see how this unit does. So going over my opponent's list, he's got a High Prince on a Lion Chariot. So he's got a 1-up, 4-up, and he can turn off magical items. However, this doesn't apply to me because I'm demons and I just have manifestations. He does have Ghostly Guard, so all of my attacks are magical, which is kind of nice. So now against me he has a 3-up, 4-up. We got another High Prince as General with the Elu's Heartwood bow. And the Master of the Cranerig Tower, so he's just going to be chilling in a unit of Sea Guard, which we'll see shortly. He's got an interesting commander on an Elven Horse, Battle Standard Bearer. I like this guy. He's pretty cool. He's got the Nova Flare, so he can get that extra attack in and do a bit more damage than you would expect from just a commander. He's got 2 units of Sea Guard. He's got some Lancers for scoring and possibly Chaff. He's got an actual unit of Chaff as the Reavers, and he's got 9 Rights of Nyma. 9 Knights of Rima. So he's got a Stalker standing in there so they don't die to DTs. He's got 23 Swordmasters, an Initiate, and 2 Sky Sloops. So, yeah, at first glance, speaking is tough today. First glance, I definitely see a fair amount of shooting in this list, and he can also couple that with the Initiate's range damage spells, so I'm not too keen about that. I have a fair amount of squishy units, but when I see Swordmasters, I start to salivate a little bit because the Succubi are perfect for those Swordmasters. And then the Knights of Rima, I'm thinking I'd probably put the Bloatflies in there. Or see if I can get a combo charge there. Yeah, that High Prince is going to be an issue, but we can go over that in a little bit. With the pre-game settings here, we got map A4, marching columns, my, of course, favorite deployment. And then hold the ground, so we're going to be fighting over the center now. So yeah, we've got 2 impassables on the map. We've got a forest on one end and field on the other, so giving both sides some cover. And we have a water feature as well. So I'm actually pretty excited when I see those impassables because it means the courtesan can be cheeky and scout and kind of use that to her advantage, so she's not getting the target of all that, of like potential silver spikes or things like that from the initiate, but still projecting a threat. So I think ideally I want to start with the side on the hill, and see if I can contest the center that way and give my opponent the water feature. And yeah, my pre-game thoughts on this is that the Initiate and the Chariot Prince have to become my priority targets here, because the Initiate can take Silver Spike as well as Pyroclastic Flow, so that will hurt my Succubi. That can target the Courtesan, and I just screw that model. No, that's a good unit, so I definitely need to prioritize it, as well as that Prince. That Prince counters a lot of my big stuff. I think my plan will be to tie him up with some, with the Hellhounds, perhaps, and see if I can chip some wounds off, and then maybe finish him off with a Magic Missile, or reverse it, right? Like, start on the Magic Missile side of things, and then see if I can get those final 2 wounds off. So I'm not sure how that fight goes with the Courtesan, to be honest, because the thing is I have to be conscious of the multi-wound 2 against me. But at the same time, he's hitting on 5s, wounding me on 4s. So I get a 5-up Aegis. He doesn't have divine attacks in the list, which my Courtesan doesn't care about anyway. And I'm AP4, so I just go straight to his Aegis save. So I don't know. It's a bit dicey there. It depends on really who gets the magic setup and the charge. So plus he's not the general. It's just like ultimately he's kind of benefiting more from that exchange than I am, I would say. But we'll see how we get on. I do think this whole match is indeed matchup dependent, and what I mean is that, you know, the Sword Masters, I want the Succubi against the Sword Masters, I want the Bloatflies potentially with support into those Rymanites. I know the guy has the Nova Lance, but like I still have all those toxic attacks and strength 6 AP3 attacks, so I think I should do well there if I get a combo charge in. Veil Serpents are kind of an interesting spot here, with their AP 0, but a lot of poison attacks, so I can fly them in, hopefully support a combat here. My plan will be to use the Lemures to score, as well as hopefully create some sort of roadblock in the center, so that if he does want to push into the center with his scoring units, I can create issues for him and then pounce. We'll see how we get on. So yeah, I'm thinking it could be a bit of a draw here. We both have resources to fight over the center, but I think he's going to want to not engage me as long as possible and just let his range damage do the work, versus for me, I need to push forward and get into close combat. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. All right, so this is not just deployment, but also my turn 1. So I believe I won the roll to choose sides, so I chose the side with the hill, and then we exchanged drops. So I dropped my Hellhounds first here, then I dropped some Veil Serpents somewhere in this area, and then I dropped some Furies. My opponent dropped, he dropped some silver what are they called? Lancers. I think he chose to drop his Sword Masters and then his Initiate and then the Sword Masters. And then once I saw where he dropped his Sword Masters, I was like, oh, perfect. Okay. And so at that rate, I dropped for first because I really wanted to knock out that Initiate, hopefully my turn 1. That was my plan here. And plus I, again, not only salivating here with the Succubi, But then I noticed that he's right across from a water terrain feature, so I'm just like, ooh, okay. He can charge through there. He can not be steadfast if he chooses to engage, so yeah, I'm happy about that. So yeah, as you can see, I dropped then the Succubi with the Kalima right here. My Harbinger is in the dog unit. 2 units of Lemures. We got Furies, we got Brazen Beasts, and then we have my Bloatflies off on the far right side. My opponent has his Prince Chariot. He's got the Lancers, the Initiate, the Swordmasters. He got his 20 Seaguard with his General, the Master of the Cranary Tower. He's got his BSB and the Rymanites. He's got another unit of Seaguard, Sky Sloop, and Reavers who vanguarded up. So this is my turn 1. I actually push up. I'm not as aggressive as I'd like as I'm looking at this picture. Like, I push up rather tentatively, and I think that's a bit of a mistake. I think I really need to start closing the gap rather quickly. Just because he has so much shooting, or he has enough shooting to cause me issues, as you'll see. So really, I just dip my toe into the objective here with the Lemures. I'm giving him, I think, a 9 with his Rymanites, and if he goes through there, he's going to hit my other Lemure unit, and then I'll have, of course, all my units just ready to pounce on that. So I'm tempting him for it. Right here, the Courtesan scouted in my deployment zone and is now behind the Impassable, looking out. She can indeed see that Initiate, and now because the Harbinger and the Kalima are within 12 inches of her, her divination range is extended to 24, which is really nice. I don't actually move my Hellhounds up, being tentative here with that Prince. The Veil Serpents, I don't know what they're doing. They're just in my backfield trying to get central and looking out this way for some reason. And yeah, the Bloatflies, I think, are covering enough of a movement where he can't just fly out of my line of sight turn 1, and I did put them into cover with those Sky Sloops coming around. So that's how it looks there. In my magic phase, I'm only able to do 2 wounds to the Initiate, so I didn't have a slide for either of my opponent's magic cards, but I did take Fate's Judgment, I did take Unerring Strike, and I did take Hand of Heaven on the Kalima. My opponent let go Fate's Judgment. He stopped, and I didn't do any wounds, he made all of his armor saves. Then my opponent stopped Unerring Strike, and then I got in a little Hand of Heaven, which did 2 wounds to the dragon, so not ideal here. Yeah, so now that's a problem because I know my opponent took healing water, so he can just heal these wounds back up. So, but I guess that is what it is, and also just take a look at that Initiate. Oh god, I love the gem here. That's just so well done, and the basing, like the fall themed colors, rather appropriate, I'd say. Yeah, it's just very well painted from my opponent there. Okay, going into my opponent's turn 1, he gives no fucks about the dogs. So he just pushes up that lion chariot and says, yeah, go for it, I don't care. He moves his Initiate around to get some charge angles here without being seen by the Courtesan. His Lancers come to support his Prince. Swordmasters just barely dip their toe into the water. I think he does have to move up a hair to get into range of the Succubi here. I think here he stays put, and he just angles his Sky Sloops facing my Brazen Beasts. So I can tell you that, yeah, all that shooting is going to come into the Brazen Beasts at the moment, which is a bit of a bummer. He stays outside of my charge range here with the bloat flies, and then he just brings his reavers over in the center to get ready to chaff in future turns. With magic, I believe I stopped a pyroclastic flow on the succubi, but my opponent is able to get off a healing waters, and sure enough, heals the dragon. It's also possible that my opponent got a hereditary off as well, which will come into effect later. And on to my turn 1. So as you can see, my brazen beasts took a walloping. So I've lost, oh my goodness, 4, 5, 6, 7 wounds from the combined shooting. I think these Seaguard were also able to get a beat on them as well. So, yeah, the sky sloops opened up. Everything shot into the brazen beasts. And yeah, that's not great. So I push up the succubi a bit. Now I have 2 units of lemures into the center. I put the Veil Serpents facing out this way, which is starting to become an issue. I mean, ideally I want to be able to charge off the hill next time with their high advance rate, but I think I could have angled them a bit better to be covering this side here. And speaking of which, my bloat flies are now in a position while I'm covering the center here. I've given him room to move outside of my line of sight. So this was one of my first mistakes here with the bloat flies. I had the brazen beast covering that anyway, so it was just kind of like, that doesn't make sense to have both these units covering. I'm not happy about that. And also you'll notice, okay, so I charge my Hellhounds into the flank of his initiate. He gave me about a 7 here. And so he decided to flee. And my thought process was, well, he's going to flee roughly about here and potentially block up his own Swordmasters. At least that's when and then I'd redirect into the Prince. But when he fled, he rolled, I think, an 11 or a 12 and just bounced completely through the unit. And so, darn it. And then I am able to redirect into the Prince. The Courtesan, actually her base is right behind this impassable here. Not where she is now because the wings are too big. So she's actually further up. This is also a bit of a mistake on my part because it allows his Reavers to come and block up the Courtesan if he want, not the Reavers, excuse me, the Lancers to come block up the Courtesan. I'm not quite sure what I was thinking. I think I really wanted to get in range of this Initiate and try and blow him off the table because I just didn't want him rallying. But I think ultimately this is a mistake here. Because I know this guy's going to be here for a couple of rounds, so he's not going to be able to go through this unit of Hellhounds in 2 turns. But yeah, I could have done something better with her. So in the magic phase, speaking of which, I'm unable to successfully get rid of the Initiate. However, I do get a non-boosted Spectral Blades onto the Hellhounds, and hoping to do some lethal strikes onto this Prince with all of the attacks, I'm just going to decline a challenge, and yeah, hope for the best there. Hopefully, the goal is to, I don't think I kill him, but I want to at least start the process of getting wounds through onto the Prince. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. So after close combat, we both kind of have a whiff fest here. I only do 1 wound with all of my attacks and lethal strikes. I do manage to get through, I think, 4 or 5, but my opponent is able to ignore at least one of them, if not 2 of them, with the the hereditary, and then he makes his Aegis saves. So at the end of it, I just got 1 wound through, and my opponent does 2 to me. So it's actually pretty bad for me at the moment because it's a push, which means my digestive vomit does not go off on the Hellhounds. And furthermore, my unit is a bit further up. And so this allows his Silverhelms to come, Lancers to come in, clip this unit, and actually now potentially pop them with that charge and all that combat res. So unless I do something back to them, that's not looking good. And on to my opponent's turn 2. My opponent does charge the Lancers into the Hellhounds. And then other than that, my opponent just brings their chaff over here to block up the Succubi, and so now I think we're going to have some range damage from the Sea Guard, and then the Dragon start focusing them down. And then my opponent capitalizes on my mistake here and moves the Sky Sloop just out of line of sight, but I think the Sky Sloop also still has a bead on the Brazen Beasts, and I think my opponent was able to do it in a way where the Brazen Beasts are not benefiting from cover, unfortunately. I know it looks like it from this picture, but I think we figured out that it's actually, there's no benefit from cover there. So, well played to my opponent there. And now you can also see the Swordmasters actually moving up into the water, which is, it's like they're right where I want them, but I just need to get to them with my Succubi unit, because as remember, my Succubi have Chilling Yawn, so it's the -2 agility modifier. So, oh man, it's so close. And and magic, I stop favor of Melodis, but I think my opponent is able to get a scorching salvo off and combine that with the bow shots. Does quite a number on the Succubi. And you will also see in the next picture that my Brazen Beasts are now just down to the champion model. So that's combined shooting from the Sea Guard and the Sky Sloops as well. And into the close combat, I only have 1 Hellhound and the Harbinger left from the Prince. So now that's my turn. So that's also not ideal, because that means my opponent will be free on their turn next, and we'll have charge options depending on what I do with that Lion Chariot. So it is not looking good. On to my turn 3. So you'll notice that I did not charge the Courtesan into those Lancers for a couple of reasons here. First off, because I declined the challenge with the Harbinger, the Lion Chariot swinging away at the Hellhounds and the Harbinger cannot attack this unit. So if I were to charge in with the Courtesan, he does have a champion in this unit, so he can just challenge me out. And say, for example, I even break the unit. The Lion Chariot probably deals and crumbles down this unit here and is able to turn and then countercharge my Courtesan. So I don't want that to happen. So instead, I pull her back and just, essentially, I'm giving up my left flank now. I didn't really have a good spot. I did want to bring her up here, but again, he crumbles down this unit, and then he just needs to turn his Lion Chariot around and charge my Courtesan in the butt. So I can't have that. That's not great. Perhaps I could have done like a weird gamey sort of move where like you move the Courtesan around in a way where she's facing out this angle but is blocking the Lion Chariot from effectively reforming to no, he'd still face her. So never mind. Nope, never. No, bad idea. I pulled her back. And in other news, Brazen Beasts go and are just booking it from those sky sloops because, yeah, I'm trying to save points now. They're trying to save their points and then maybe try and contest the objective in a later round if it's looking like I'm not going to win it. I moved the Furies up to chaff the Knights and the Sea Guard. As it turns out, I thought I had chaffed the Swordmasters, but with a double check, my opponent is actually able to wheel past them and hit the Succubi. And my opponent did allow me a take back, but I decided, no, I'm just going to have to learn from my mistake and wear it. So the Swordmasters can effectively charge and kind of clip the Succubi unit here, which is not... well, that would have been interesting. I think that would have been an interesting moment there. But, yep, so this is my opponent's formation at the moment. In Magic, I am able to kill some Swordmasters. I believe with a magic missile, it might be this turn. But and I am able to get, my guiding, or not guiding, excuse me, the guiding light. Yeah, guiding light up onto one of my Lemure units, but other than that, nothing crazy happens. And as you can see now, close combat, my opponent goes to reform the Highborn Lancers so that they can at least come and intercept the Succubi for another round of shooting and chaff, if my opponent wishes. And now that Lion Chariot is free to come around my left flank. And that's exactly what my opponent does. He starts moving around my left flank here. He chaffs my Succubi for another round of shooting and missiles, perhaps. And he charges the... oh my goodness, names, words, life. He charges the Dragon Princes into the Furies. In other news, he's moving his Sky Sloop continually around my Bloatflies because I'm not positioning my Bloatflies very well at this stage. And yep, he's just going to focus now everything. I think he switches target now to my Bloatflies to start whittling them down. And you'll see in the next picture what happens to the Succubi. And that's what happens to Succubi. Magic and shooting does that. Oh boy. Yeah, so now I really shouldn't be pushing them forward at this rate, but hey. And some of you might be noticing these little slips here. This one fell over, but these slips actually indicate to my opponent which units are which. So, for example, on the other side of the slip, it says, Succubi, Chilling Yawn, and I have slips of papers for all my other units, just because this army is mostly 3D printed, and yeah, I definitely want to give my opponent the heads up before they choose to charge a Succubi unit that they are indeed charging a Succubi unit with Chilling Yawn. So yeah, that's what happens here. Succubi, not looking good. And here's where I start to unravel, I'd say. The best way to define that. Well, just unravel in terms of like my decision making. Yeah, I believe on the surface I was calm and collected. But no. I'm starting to make some bad decisions here with my charges. I charged the Lemures and the Veil Serpents into the Dragon Princes. My thought process here is to still find a way to win the objective in this turn and stick the Dragon Princes there, with the idea of having my Courtesan and the Bloatflies countercharge once these two units are crumbled, essentially. And he doesn't want to push forward here with the Sea Guard because, yeah, you have a Courtesan on a hill and Bloatflies looking at you. Bloatflies fly, which is nice, and the Chariots can't come over there and chaff the Courtesan, so that's not going to be happening. I still have my other Lemure unit there, so I have two scoring on the objective to his... I think the Dragon Princes are finally inside now. So... yeah, and then of course the Succubi charged the chaff because it's points at this rate, and I figured, well, if they're going to die, they're going to die doing what they love, which is killing Highborn Elves. And yeah, the Brazen Beast with now 2 wounds remaining, or excuse me, 3 wounds remaining, because he has 1 wound here, is just hiding right behind that hill, looking out this way to tempt that lion chariot to come. I know I'm probably not going to charge it, honestly, but, giving him something to think about. Yeah, so in other news, I am able to get... Oh gosh, I think my opponent dispels my magic missiles from the courtesan, and I'm able to get perhaps a spell up on the lemures to give them double minimized discipline, which is, it's something. So yeah, well, this is after Crumble here. Lemures are down to 4 models. Veil Serpents, I'm, oh gosh, down to also 4 models. And I don't do anything to this unit. Nothing. Which is, that's not actually surprising just because, they have a 2-up armor save and I have no AP. And his Nova Flare guy, kills some Veil Serpents. It's not looking good. And then in other news, the Succubi with the Kalima failed to kill the entire unit. So he broke, and he's still alive. And spoiler alert, he will continue to run off the board. But that was a bit disappointing. But hey, there you have it. Now we're going into my opponent's turn 4. Into my opponent's turn 4, my opponent is continuing to take advantage of the fact that I've basically given up both my flanks at this rate. I was so focused on the center that I'm just like, no, screw it. You can have my right and left flank. It's not going to hurt me whatsoever. ... So yeah, my opponent comes over, he brings the Initiate to do a nice little breath weapon into the Succubi. The Chariot comes around to start threatening some of my other units. And the Sky Sloop comes around to start shooting. Now it's where the Sky Sloops turn onto the Bloatflies. That makes sense. And now magic is going to go into the the Dragon Princes to start buffing them up, preparing them for the impending countercharge from the Bloatflies and the Courtesan. And when we go into... I don't have a picture of my opponent's magic phase, but I know he gets up at least 1 buff onto the Dragon Prince unit. Okay, that's what it was. So... my opponent has a buff up onto the Sea Guard, so they're +1 strength, and another buff up onto the Dragon Princes, but I stopped Pyroclastic Flow at this rate. And then I guess the Breath Weapon only kills 1 more Succubi? I think he whiffed on that Breath Weapon. Or he's saving it. I can't remember at this rate. But, as you can see, from close combat, Veils and the Lemures crumble. So now we tie the objective. So I've won the objective turns 2 and 3. And so now this one is a tie on turn 4. It's because we each have 1 unit. I have a unit of Lemures, and my opponent has the Dragon Princes at the moment. Actually, no, excuse me. I know what happens. He overruns, I think, with the Sea Guard. I think he can go past the Sword Master, so he overruns with the Sea Guard to get into the objective. So I think my opponent actually wins the objective this round. And in desperation, I'm throwing caution to the wind. Well, you'll see, first of all, the Succubi, they charge the Initiate. I definitely hope to kill it. You'll also notice that the Courtesan is in by herself. The Bloatflies failed their charge. Ah, crap. This is definitely like an aw crap moment, because you can also see what there is another potential for here. Yeah. So basically, he's just going to challenge out the courtesan, and now I think with the way that I mean, there was no way I could get the sea guard into her front. Like, no matter what, it was a flank charge. So I just really, really needed the bloatflies to get in there. I think they only needed a 7 on Swift Stride, to be honest. So it wasn't like, yeah, it's certainly still failable, but I really could have used just a bit of average in that moment to get those bloatflies in. So I could. My hope was to potentially challenge out the BSB, because the courtesan is immune to divine attacks, and he already used his Nova Lance at that point, so I think I kill him. And then my goal was to overrun, like clip into the Sea Guard with the bloatflies. That was the thinking, but it didn't happen. And as you can see here, the Brazen Beast goes up now to put another body onto the objective. So now it is... now I have 2 scoring units. So to my astute players here, I think the Chariot cannot see the Lemures, but the Chariot can, of course, see the Brazen Beast, and that distance is a 10 on Swift Stride. So I'm hoping that my opponent fails that charge. And in close combat, I finally kill the... No! I didn't even kill the Initiate. The Succubi do 3 wounds to the Initiate with the Kalima. He goes ahead and stomps and kills a few of my Succubi. And I break him and run the Initiate down. And I run out of line of sight of the Swordmasters. So, yeah. And then you can see my chaffing maneuver here with the Lemures. And yep, I kill the champion, of course, but everyone sticks around. I do get a Know Thy Enemy up on the courtesan for what it's worth. But yeah. Now she's going to be receiving a juicy flank charge from that beautifully painted Sea Guard unit. And boom. The Lion Chariot makes his 10 Swift Stride charge. Oh man, this freaking character has been such a he's a champ. He killed. You see, I'm sure you can see what's happening now. So he's going to kill this guy, overrun to the bloatflies to prevent my counter charge into the Sea Guard. Yeah. And then wipe up the bloatflies, probably. I mean, but it is a bit risky. They are bloatflies. They are, strength 6 AP3, and they have the toxic attack, so I'm hoping, okay, he might fail some saves. It's not guaranteed. Although my champion is on this side. You can see the little band there to mark the champion. So it's 4 attacks, hitting them on 4s, wounding them on 2s, and then, yeah, it's really, I'm trying to rely on those toxic attacks to get through and kill him. But yeah, so my opponent takes the charge. He's going to challenge me out. I think what I do is on this turn I stopped favor of Miletus, and unfortunately that allows my opponent to grow back a champion model here. The reason why I stopped the favor is just because I was kind of concerned of the courtesan actually not killing the champion. Like he could just subtract, those veil tokens and just say, no, you don't kill him. And also I wanted to make sure that this guy could potentially take some wounds through if he does overrun into the bloatflies. So I don't know if that was the right call, but that was the call I made. And in other news, you can see the Sea Guard with the General charge into my unit of Lemures. So they're not too long for this world. As expected, the Lion Chariot guy blows through the Brazen Beasts, hits the flank of the bloatflies, which now, as you can see, one of them is been killed from shooting. And so I'm just hoping the bloatflies can get those 3 wounds back before they eventually die. And in other news, of course, my lemures crumbled down to 2 models, so that Sea Guard unit is still stuck in combat. And I still have, so that means, that's important, it means that I still have a, it means I lose the objective at this rate because he killed my Brazen Beast, and now it's 2 scoring of his to my 1 scoring unit. So he wins the objective here. And yeah, there's not much I can do at this rate. I now only have 2 functioning spells, so that's Stars Align and Know Thy Enemy, so my opponent, of course, stops Stars Align on the court. And you'll also notice 3 wounds. It's just because I failed my minimized discipline check on the courtesan and took 3 wounds. And yeah. So at least she has a Know Thy Enemy and 1 more instance of minimized discipline. But I'm just hoping to see if I can just punk this guy with bloatflies. Can they be the heroes? In my opponent's magic phase, I believe I do stop the favor. I think I already mentioned that. But in close combat, yeah. My opponent does, grind down this unit, and now my opponent has officially, he will be now winning the objective now twice, so tying that with my 2 wins. And we'll see what happens to that prince in just 1 second. No! And the prince tanks it. He kills all the bloatflies. I don't do any wounds to him. The toxic attacks all whiff. I think I had 4 toxic attacks go through. I still had, and 2 regular attacks that both hit, both wound, made his Aegis. And then I failed to wound with my toxic attacks. So didn't even give it a good go. So, and now I am being punished for it. That prince is now in the butt of the courtesan. So while I want him desperately to just challenge with the prince, I don't think my opponent's going to do it. I think he's just going to rely on me failing my my minimized discipline check and just crumbling. There you have it, folks. The court crumbles. She, of course, he challenged out with the champion. Court did her best. She killed that champion real good, but wasn't enough, and she failed her minimized discipline. So, yeah, I was probably losing by, at that rate, it was like charge, rear, big flank, 2 ranks, 1, 2, 3 banners. It was a lot. I think it was a massive long shot, but it was worth a try. But great game. Well played to my opponent. And yeah, I was punished for my hubris. All right, and with that is a 16-4 to the Highborn Elves. So I basically lost everything but the Kalima, and then the Succubi gave up half points, and then I only was able to take the Lancers, the Reavers, and the Initiate. So yeah, that made it a 16-4. Yeah, whew! Yeah, that was rough. Ooh, boy. So let's get into those post-game thoughts. So lots of thoughts here. First of all, really, really well played to my opponent. I felt that my opponent was really played very patiently and really waited to those last 2 turns to be able to tie that objective, and just took advantage of the mistakes I was making in my movement phase. So very, very well done there. So I think as a whole, in terms of the macro side of the game, I just wasn't making. I didn't follow through on my game plan, which was to push and be more aggressive and to try and create a larger roadblock in that I could dictate those counter charges, and I wasn't able to deal with the initiate or the Lion Prince at all with range damage. So that didn't go to plan. I think I really could have been a bit more aggressive with the Succubi. I think I was concerned with the combo charge from the Dragon Princes and the Sword Masters. But, I mean, yeah, I was just getting shot to pieces and pyroed pretty extensively. So, yeah, I think, at that rate, if I'm already in my opponent's range of being picked apart, I might as well just like push forward and try and get them in or get them stuck in as quick as possible. Some micro stuff, like a lot of my movement, I think I just was not making good decisions again. Like I was not covering my flanks well with the bloat flies. I'm just misplaying the Veil Serpents. Like I don't know why I'm charging them in there to Dragon Princes, or not covering my flanks with the Veil Serpents either. Like I have the lateral movement to be able to do these things, and I just wasn't. I was so focused onto the center, and that Prince getting that 10-inch charge, just like that was like the final cascade of events that just put the that last nail in the coffin for me there. Let's say he failed that charge, and that would have allowed at least the bloat flies. Not sure the Brazen Beast would have survived the shooting, but it would have allowed at least the bloat flies to countercharge that Seaguard unit and to really push that combat with the courtesan back in my favor. So yeah, not good. But who knows? It's certainly a failable charge, and I think I would approach this game a bit differently now. Just cleaning up my movement phase is, I think, the big learning experience I had with this game. So yeah, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Like and subscribe if you're feeling spicy. Great game to my opponent once more, and we'll see how things go in round 3 of Mountain Mayhem. So thanks everyone. Ciao for now.